the hell are you guys?
I don't plan on doing many movie reviews, but I make an exception for Avengers Infinity Wars because in many ways I see it as a pillar of superhero movies, much like the Dark Knight series was for the other team. And I want to discuss why it succeeded brilliantly and why it failed miserably in the opposite order. So let's start with failure. For those of you that aren't 40, birthday in a few days, let me tell you about a movie called Old Yeller.
Old Yeller, Old Yeller, Old Yeller. Here, Yeller, come back, Yeller.
In it, a dog dies, and that's all you need to know. That's the movie. It's one of those tragedy movies that everyone loves and remembers. It scarred them as a child, and it's one of the reasons why we love tragedy is because it brings out such emotion, and we like to feel emotion. Why do we love tragedies? I'm a huge fan of tragedies. If a choice is placed before me on most any day between a tragedy and a comedy, I would go tragedy. When I say tragedy and comedy, I'm thinking about the Greek definitions. So it doesn't necessarily mean sad and happy, or a comedy isn't. Before I go any further, I'm going to tell you that many people will think this contains spoilers. I don't think that because I don't believe in spoilers. I have yet to see a movie where knowing anything about the plot beforehand lessened the movie in any way. But I'm one of those strange individuals who still loves Christmas and doesn't believe in Santa Claus. I will say I reveal plot lines that some might consider Santa Claus. If that's a problem, go watch the movie. Can I also say that if within the first week of a movie being released, if you haven't seen that movie, then you're not a real fan. And Old Yeller dies, and it is sad. It is an extremely emotional movie. Infinity Wars wants to be like Old Yeller, but let's mess with the plot of Old Yeller real quick. Prequels. We made dozens of prequels to Old Yeller, and in many of these prequels, dogs like Old Yeller died, or so we thought, but then through some miracle, they came back to life. This has got to be one of the most common things in superhero movies. It's so common that having a superhero that actually dies is a huge major event. So with the knowledge that you have gained as a fan of Old Yeller from the prequels, that these dogs will come back, most likely, do you think that would lessen the moment of death in Old Yeller? What if in the very same movie in which Old Yeller died, someone used time travel to go back in time and alter events? Do you think that would cheapen any death later in the movie? The main theme in Infinity Wars is the sacrifice of friends for the greater good. Thanos goes around threatening the Avengers that if they don't give him his magic MacGuffins. A MacGuffin is, quote, a plot device that motivates the character and advances the story, particularly one whose importance is accepted completely by the story's characters, yet from the audience's perspective, it might be minimally explained, end quote. So in other words, we don't know why Thanos needs these magic rocks or much about how they work. And we don't need to because it really doesn't matter. So some of the Avengers willingly sacrifice half of humanity to save someone they care about, or they sacrifice someone they care about to save half of humanity. At the end of the movie, Thanos even actually does it and kills half of humanity as a sacrifice for the greater good. The problem is our Old Yeller paradox. If you probably will come back through some Deus Ex Machina, a person or thing, as in fiction or drama, that appears or is introduced suddenly and unexpectedly and provides a contrived solution to an apparently insoluble difficulty. It is using some strange magical event or thing that the audience couldn't possibly guess. Many times writers write themselves into a corner where in order to save characters from a difficult problem, they use magical, contrived ways to resolve the issue. A great example of this can be dream sequences. characters are faced with insurmountable problems and or terrible things happen, and then bam, they wake up without having to solve it. Oh, good, it was all a dream. This is generally bad writing, and comic books love to do this. This movie particularly is full of Deus Ex Machina. Thor is stuck in space, bam, the flying rabbit shows up. A machine android character needs a magical stone to survive, unless science. This is sloppy and boring writing. It doesn't make the audience think or even try to guess at how a problem could possibly be solved. The audience becomes passive participants in the roller coaster plotline rolling along. The problem is when audiences claim a popcorn film is more than a popcorn film. Comic book audiences love to make their roller coaster movies sound very intelligent. There's nothing wrong with a roller coaster until the moment you claim the roller coaster helped you better understand themes of mass murder. Superhero movies love to toy with these deep themes. Oh, look, a big explosion. Speaking of big explosions, the superpowers in this movie are so boring. Every one of them can basically be boiled down to, I can hit you really hard, either with this red magic or this metal fist or this magical shield or this magic axe. Peter Dinklage was great. Dwarf, small, bigger than everybody else. I have these two fists that Thanos turned into metal, but I can still do everything with metal fists. Specific powers are not used creatively. Even Thanos's godlike powers are not explained, which is fine. We don't need to know why he can destroy half the universe, but can't use the same magic to come up with a better solution. It's a MacGuffin, but it's established early on in the characters of the movie. I'll believe it, but it isn't very creative or fascinating. It's unexplained magic that kills Old Yeller, even though we've established Old Yeller might come back from the dead and time travel has a plan. But maybe they won't all come back. Maybe this really is a tragedy and it will make us take a deep introspective look at sacrifice. The best roller coaster is the Twin Dragon Ride in Harry Potter. Much better than Hulk. Finally, let's talk about character arcs. Character arcs are important because they lead us along a journey of improvement where characters are faced with weaknesses and they learn from these weaknesses. We love this. In fact, the bigger the weakness, the bigger the challenge, the more under in the underdog, the more we love the movie when the character rises to the occasion. But superheroes are, well, super, so it becomes incredibly more difficult to find challenges for them. Mary Sue is an idealized and seemingly perfect fictional character. A perfect example of this would be Superman. Every time it seems Superman has a flaw, he uses his Deus Ex Machina to overcome. In Man of Steel, for example, when faced with his greatest weakness, kryptonite, Superman overcomes it by trying harder. Yeah, Superman, you taught us a lot about humanity and self-development by trying harder. Looking back on all of the characters, there wasn't really a character arc that was amazing. When Vision convinces Scarlet Witch to kill him for the greater good throughout the movie. But that is repeated with Gamora and Star-Lord, which only detracts even more from an underdeveloped arc. Thanos kind of has an arc, but does anyone really believe he loved Gamora? I mean, even Gamora didn't believe he loved Gamora. And mass murderers are into small girls, or just because we say so, because she was a fighter, because reasons. Two of the most interesting characters, because of their weaknesses, Black Widow and Bucky, are basically reduced to mindless soldiers in this movie. Mindless girl fawning over the masculine Hulk teddy bear. So her becoming the mentally abused spy who channeled her weakness into manipulating others towards good, well, now she hits things really hard. And so now the brilliant. Let's change pace here for a second. Marvel succeeds mainly because their movies are not about superpowers. They are about super personalities clashing. The scenes between the alpha characters in this movie are genuinely believable and enjoyable and comical. The women are portrayed as strong, maybe a little vanilla, but strong shoulder to shoulder participants with the men, with spunk, which is now contributing to overcoming long held social bias. It also succeeds because it never takes itself too seriously. Comic book fans are notorious at hating this, but all you have to do is watch a current DC movie to see what happens when you take yourself too seriously or take comic books too seriously. Marvel's self awareness allows them to laugh with the audience when things get a little too campy. The acting is superb. All of the characters are believable because the actors make you believe. This is also a result of good direction, no doubt. The special effects and cinematography flow naturally into the movie and never distract. Thanos' CG was very believable. The plot amazingly gives most of the characters, and this is a number one amazing thing about this movie. The plot amazingly gives most of the characters enough screen time in believable ways. This was not a hard movie to follow. I'm sure in repeat viewings, deeper plot lines might reveal themselves, but I never felt like I didn't quite understand what was going on. With so many characters, this was in and of itself probably the greatest feat of this movie, one for which it should be modeled after and praised for years to come. This was spectacular writing to interweave so many believable character motivations. It wasn't perfect, but I can think of no other movie in which so many characters were coordinated so successfully out of any movie I've ever seen. It has the potential to become a great tragedy with deeper meaning if characters stay dead, which they won't. But for now, enjoyers of great tragedy and enjoyers of great roller coaster ride movies can almost touch